Okay, so Graham, let's go from the top. And if I mean, obviously, you're probably going to be doing a little bit on this first take. You're going to be doing a little bit of headphone adjustment. If there's something you can't manage, just say, "Hey guys, stop."
Okay.
Tell us what you need to change. And also, while you're kind of getting comfortable, I'm going to just be fine tuning my gain structure in here, my record level.
Okay.
And then then we'll be able to make a few more takes, and I think we'll be good. You know the song real well, and you're sounding great.
Great.
We stood up for what's right, at least in our own eyes. Never stopped to consider what a mess we'd become. I won't bury it. Oh, I won't bury it. Oh, I won't bury it.
Great, man. There's a few small things that I'd like to just sort of mention.
Yes.
In the chorus, I won't put out the fire tonight.
Yes.
Can we just rehearse that line? Your pitch has been great for the most part. It's just I noticed on the first and second chorus that line was maybe just a little pitchy flat.
Oh, okay.
Just after that first, I won't bury it. Maybe we don't need to rehearse it. Maybe just pointing it out's enough.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing at this point that I would mention are two things. I was on the wrong side of a political line in the first verse.
Mm-hmm.
The wrong side. I just need a little more intelligibility there.
Okay.
And then when we get to the bridge, I like that you're kind of like low and chesty, but maybe just add a little breath to it so so it's a little clearer.
Oh yes.
Okay. Great. Anything we can do for you? You want to just go from the top?
No, let's go from the top. I was still fiddling with my level for my vocal, so I feel a little more comfortable now.
Okay. All right. Well, if there's anything we can do, let us know.
Cool.
You sound great. Couple few thoughts about recording vocals. Let's start with a few technical things. If a vocalist is having trouble with pitch, sometimes especially if they're sharp, their own voice is too loud in their headphone blend. If they are responsible for making their headphone mix, at my studio we have headphone boxes and everybody kind of gets to create their own mix. You might need to go out and listen to it, maybe just kind of have a conversation with them about it, see if turning it down a little bit helps that. If you're making the headphone mix, just kind of like turn it down a little bit and sort of see what happens. If you turn it down a dB or two and the pitch improves, that could be a symptom of it, and this is especially if it's sharp. Sometimes having too much reverb will make someone a little bit pitchy. Oftentimes it helps someone because they have something to sing into and sing against. They have a feeling of space, and that's helpful to hear the intonation and pitch. That's why saxophone players, when they warm up, they do it against a wall so they can hear the sound coming back to themselves, so they can kind of get the intonation right and set their reed properly. Sometimes taking one ear off is a good idea so that the vocalist can hear themselves in the room and it sounds a little bit more natural to the way someone would maybe just normally sing, to just actually hear their own voice, not through all the EQ and compression and the density of what the track may be. That's another thing to look out for technically. And then when you begin a recording, if you are, especially, and this is not just for vocals, it's like if you're doing acoustic guitar, once you kind of get things set, just to do a quick little listen in solo and make sure that the headphone bleed is not too much. Click is especially a big issue. The music bleeding into the headphones and into the vocal track is fine, but nobody wants to hear the click, especially when things get quiet. It's not meant to be part of the composition or the final outcome. So make sure that the click bleed is manageable. It's not too loud. Sometimes you have to turn the click up and down for different sections. So those some technical things. Some like people management, like creative things, helpful things. Have a lyric sheet. Be able to follow along. Be able to make notes. I mean, over the course of a song, I mean, I have a bunch of notes here where I didn't understand what he was singing as clearly as I wanted to. The timing wasn't where I felt it should be. The pitch was a little bit off. You know, so I have just like a little bit of a shorthand where I keep these notes, and then I'm able to talk to the singer and be very specific about certain things. I mean, you kind of have to gauge the mood and how someone receives information. You don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want to put them in too much of a thinking mode. You want to be able to encourage them and tell them where they're doing well, and then secondarily tell them where there's a few things that you'd like them to focus on. I didn't give Graham my full list right away. I gave him the most important things because some of the things I sort of thought, well, maybe the next time he sings it, it'll be fine. But just kind of keeping track of it and just kind of like giving him a little bit of information at a time, kind of drawing him along. I mean, when we went through the 3 takes, the bridge never really sounded great to me, but I didn't really make that an issue until I knew that we'd addressed the larger body of singing through the song, and that's like, okay, now that we're ready to break this down and address a few notes that I have that are still lingering, let's do the big thing first. You know, understanding the difference between a head voice and a chest voice. Everybody feels singing a little bit differently, so it's important that I'm not particularly a good singer. I have a hard time. I'm good with melodies and I can hum them in my head, and I can get them out sometimes, but I'm not a great vocalist. But I know what makes a great vocal, and I know the physicality of it, and so I'm able to sort of talk to someone, and hopefully the way that the knowledge that I have and the interpretation that I have, I can have a conversation with someone to sort of help them find the solution to a problem, or where it's maybe not feeling right. Because the voice is not as easy as tuning a guitar. It's like, well, the guitar is out of tune. You tune it to a tuner. The voice is not that way, and you're also dealing with I mean, the whole body is the voice and the instrument, and so like the vibe and emotion of it is really important to get things to happen. And I guess the last thing I would talk about is, I guess it kind of goes back a little bit to a technical thing, but getting the technical stuff right, making sure that the reverb is kind of the right reverb, and the levels are right. It's like the choice that we talked about with choosing that specific compressor. The more finished of a sound that I can help create while the vocalist is singing, while Graham was singing, the easier it'll be for them. You know, I want to get that preamp level up to a good level, you know, just to where it's not really going to clip. I mean, maybe the louder portions of singing are really up there and pretty hot, and then that I'm getting enough compression that the vocal sounds controlled, and that my overall level, I mean, obviously the choruses are sung louder, so they're going to be a little bit hotter, but the difference between the verse volume and the chorus volume in terms of the recorded level, maybe only a few dB different. As we get more compression when he's singing louder in the choruses, the waveforms are going to look bigger, because there's more information, there's more RMS compressed into that recorded level. But you know, a recorded vocal should be, it's a very dynamic thing. So it's not like a bass that is just low frequency centered, or a guitar, like a distorted guitar. We want to get the peak. There's very dynamic. There's going to be a lot of, even with good compression, there's still going to be a lot of range of dynamics in the vocal. I want to get the vocal recording up to like -3. You know, I can get up close to 0, but I just want to be really sure that I'm not going to clip the vocal. Clipping the vocal is probably almost always a bad idea, because it's one of the loudest things in the mix, in the presentation, and you need the clarity. And if there's distortion on it that just happens occasionally, that's not in the bulk of it, you're going to notice. It's pretty typical that, I mean, there are some very confident singers, but even the best singers know that their voice doesn't always sound the same every day. And so you have to just keep in mind that there's probably going to be a little bit of anxiety getting settled in and getting comfortable. Very few people that I've ever been with sing perfectly every time. And there's kind of like in a way, there's a little bit of a subconscious element to that they have to be vulnerable with you in this very intimate environment to get the best out of themselves and for you to guide them. So you need to be kind and patient and understanding. You should go in and try and sing yourself. Even like me, even though I'm not a good singer, I have sung. I have done background vocals, and it's important to have an awareness of what that feels like, so that you can be sympathetic and respectful and supportive in the efforts. And just like one further thing I'd say is when we were trying to record the bridge and we weren't really sure, I wasn't really sure what to tell him. Sometimes you just have to say, okay, now sing it like you're angry, or sing this with a smile, or just try to switch it up where it's not just so much about a technical thing, that it's also an emotional thing and a performance thing. And then I remember very early on I was an assistant engineer in a recording session, and the engineer engineer producer asked the singer, well, she just sang the song a few times, and then he was like, okay, now sing it to me kind of angry, kind of a little pissed off. And then she did that, and then it was just like, then he'd sort of give her like another emotional cue. It's kind of like a director would with an actor. And maybe it wasn't the right approach for the whole song, the angry take, but there might have been one line in there that was really cool to use. So just kind of think creatively and always taking an opportunity to experiment and just sort of really go for what feels right. Ultimately, a sound will sound right if it feels right. You can't make a sound great if the performance doesn't feel right. If the intention of the sound and the part doesn't fit the composition. It really comes down to me. It comes down to does it feel right to me? And you have to empower people to feel good about what they're doing along the way. What I'm going to do is a little favorite trick of mine that I explained to you in the Ford Terrell. I'm going to do a little bit more of an ambient vocal performance, but we're going to stay in the vocal booth and do it. It's like it's what was used. I use it sometimes. I like to find places to use it, like James Bay as well. I'm going to go back to the original mic, and I'm going to have Graham face away from the mic, and I'm going to have him sing the O's. I'm going to have him sing this harmony part, and I'm going to have him sing it out a little bit more. And we're just going to get a different focus of sound, and it's going to, I think it's going to add some cool dimension to this. So Graham,
yes.
we've gone back to the flea mic, and I want to sing this same harmony part, but just on the O's. And I want you to face away from the mic and sing it out a little bit more.
Okay, like turn my back to the mic?
Yeah, turn your back to the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, just it's kind of like performed reverb. You're not in a big reverberant space, but I'm just trying to get a sound that has a little bit of dimension and texture, and it's performed as opposed to just adding an effect.
Got it.
You're the effect. And by the way we set this up and capture it, it's just like it's giving us a little bit of a different dimension. So if you just harmonize the O's and sing them out a little bit more,
okay,
that'd be great.
You got it.
I won't bury it. Oh, 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 I won't bury it.
Excellent, man. Let's just grab that one more time. See how cool of a texture that? It's just like a really easy thing to do, and I feel like it added a lot of pop and dimension to those O's there in the end. I like to think of finding your sound a bit like figuring out what your fashion sense is. You have to try on a lot of different things. You have to realize what colors work well for you. I'm totally certain that someone would rather you tell them that I'm not sure, I'm not ready, than you fake it and then not deliver. Then because then you become someone they can't trust. Doing the backbeats with claps in the first chorus and then adding a snare drum in the second chorus and then having the claps and the snare drum in the third chorus, but then adding a tambourine to it for the last chorus. Just that's sort of like a really simple example, but that's a way to develop something that I want to find textures and sounds that are not as organic, but they're contemporary. So, sometimes the sounds of like trap drums. So here's a high 808 toms with a lot of reverb on them. That the microphone should be just right about where the top lip is. If a vocalist is having trouble with pitch, sometimes it's, especially if they're sharp, their own voice is too loud in their headphone blend. You got 3 microphones, put one on your kick drum, one on your snare drum, and then the closer you get, the more focused the sound is on a particular area. And we're probably 7-8 inches away from the instrument. I would love to hear these guys play together so that I can understand what the sound of the bass and the drums sound like together. I mean, I know this is a stock plug-in and maybe it doesn't sound as real as you want it to, but if you take a little bit of time, you play around with some of the parameters, you can probably find something that will fit your production or the work that you're doing. There's several ways to go about this. We can make curves that draws the pitch so that we can grab individual things and move it around. But you can hear much more focus the snare drum has, how the hi-hat is minimized. When I turn it on, maybe you notice that it actually made the vocal sound a little bit more present and forward. In the context of things, it doesn't jump out. It helps reinforce like the most important part of the lyric. So that's a little insight into the way we achieve that.